I just put a big E on my steering wheel for enthusiasm. It's just to remind me, just be enthusiastic. Mm-hmm. And I hit President's Club every week the rest of the summer. It's just that one change mentally and in my process made a big difference.
Welcome to the Yeah But podcast, where leaders transform excuses into breakthroughs. I'm Mark Wolf, host and author of Yeah But. I interview New York Times bestselling authors, human rights activists, former CIA director, and everyone in between. Our guests share how they overcome doubts like I'm not ready to yeah, but I don't have time. Join us to learn how you can do the same. Woody, I would love to get everyone to get to know who you are. So could you tell us two things about you personally, two things professionally, and why it matters to our audience?
Sure, yeah. So one, I'm a grandfather to be. And I'm really excited about that. I just went to the baby shower last weekend. And with that, so very close with my kids, my family, and also just I love travel and adventure, and been to 6 continents and 50 countries and all 50 states.
Wow, that's fantastic. So, I want to follow up about that. So I think you're a big fan of pickleball. Is that true?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so tennis was a sport a long time ago, and then just can't keep up anymore with that. And also I was so competitive with tennis, I didn't know how to have fun with everybody else. Mm-hmm. And so, but pickleball, started right before COVID and started with my fiance. And what was great about it is it was something that we could do together. Mm-hmm. And then ultimately found out it was a great community builder. Mm-hmm. We got people in my family from 86 to 3 that play. And it's a lot of fun, and you can vary the competitiveness with it, but it's so social, and you're right there, and you get to interact with a whole bunch of different people. So it's a much more inclusive community.
So other than personal, give us a little about you professionally.
Sure. So it's funny, I didn't know I was going to end up in sales, but I did that in high school. My first kind of award I won was selling the most magazines for a drive for school, and I just went to the doctor's offices and lawyers' offices. So instead of going door to door like everybody else did, I just learned. It was just thinking smart, so it was a little more efficient. And with that, I was successful. I wasn't really thinking I was a great salesperson, but anyway, so that's where I kind of didn't realize that I was kind of good at it. It was just more like relating to people, and so then got in the medical device business and loved doing that. And then now I love from sales leadership and then mentoring other people now.
And so why would this matter to our audience, that, your experience personally and professionally? How does this relate?
Well, for me, it's been an evolution. Mm-hmm. So early on, especially like with playing sports like tennis, it was very individualized, and I was very competitive. I was going to win. You were going to lose. But that's what kind of had to, that's what made me successful. And also I found that when I put a lot of work into it and I was passionate about something, I was very good. Mm-hmm. When I lost that passion, so I also lost my mental toughness.
What I'm hearing is, you've taken some of your life experiences and you placed them into your job, and now it's in your career. And even after your career, you're doing other things. But even though you've done this and you've accomplished a lot of different things and you're helping other people, I heard you have some yeah buts. Is that true?
You think?
Okay, well, what's one of those yeah buts that you're...
Well, the first one was actually kind of my upbringing. So I was born in New York, but we moved down south when I was little. And so with that, I also grew up on both sides of the socioeconomic tracks, so to speak. So my parents went to school in Boston, very successful. My dad was in his career professionally. And then when my mom remarried, my stepfather was complete opposite in that instead of college education, grew up on a farm, Milltown. And the beauty of that was I got exposed to 2 different sides of the streets, so to speak. And so I had to learn how to adapt to that. It was uncomfortable at times, but ultimately I found it to be a real benefit.
That's great. So by having these 2 aspects of understanding, you knew that there were people that were like you because you were both sides of the business of life. You had people that didn't have and you did have. So how does that play out like to your yeah but? Because that yeah but, is it not where I'm from? Is that what you
Well,
want,
that was one of them.
Okay.
It also was my dad was very smart, but not particularly athletic, and so that wasn't, and I wasn't particularly athletic. And the small town that I grew up in, sports was a big deal, and so I wanted to fit in more, and so I just worked at it, and I was always the last guy picked initially, and then I just had a couple of coaches and mentors that kind of helped bring me along. One of them helped me with just physical toughness. That was our basketball coach, and then I had a tennis mentor who helped me with the mental side of things. And so I just am always appreciative of what they did in that community, not only to help me, but then I also saw them become leaders in the community too. One was a longtime mayor and the other one was city council. And so just seeing those kind of examples and what they did for me and others in the community, I'm like, I want to, now, especially as I look back, I'm like, I want to be part of that legacy.
By giving back and helping
and giving back.
And doing that.
But back to the yeah but about it was actually let me pull to one of the quotes that I had underlining here, because one of the things about growing up in a small rural town, there wasn't a lot of people that really focused on leaving the community and going on and thinking, nothing wrong with that, but I just had other visions I wanted to do from other examples I'd seen. Anyway, so one of the quotes in here was, I hated the limitations that my environment suggests. So that was a really good quote, and it made me think about, just because a lot of people, and they were happy and wanted to stay in the community, that wasn't what really drove me.
Right.
So I just found people that could support me in different ways.
And that's the thing, we all come from somewhere, and yeah, but not where I'm from. It can hold you back, and you could be content or afraid to leave because this is where your family is, this is where you're from. But there's always those outliers that are like, hey, I feel like I'm made for more. I feel like they're supposed to be. What made you decide that you were like, hey, I got to get out of here, or there's more for me?
Well, it's interesting. So a lot of great people in my small town, but then I went to Governor's Honors in high school. And with that, it was like a summer school for kids from all around the state. And there was actually a teacher there that said, you've got a lot of things going for it. Have you ever thought about looking at schools here, here, and here? While my dad had said so, sorry, I wasn't going to listen to my dad. I was going to do it my way. You know anybody like that?
Yeah.
So anyway, it was just interesting how, somebody else could say the same thing my parents were saying, but I heard it from them. And so, he just encouraged me to think a little bit bigger. And I wasn't sure I could do it, because I'm like, hey, we didn't have all these classes, we didn't have advanced calculus in my high school. But he said, well, think differently. Why don't you go to a community college, see if your school offers that? And so, they let us, there's about 5 of us that did that. And so it was just something different. So we created our own path.
And that's the thing about yeah buts, right? We have our own limiting beliefs. We have who we're surrounded with. And then all of a sudden somebody says, have you ever thought about doing this? No. Well, I've never experienced what could that be like? And now I got to move away, go to school. Okay, hold on. But if you didn't take that move, just imagine what wouldn't have happened if you would have stayed limited.
Well, and what was interesting about that was in that program is it made me think, like, I actually really fit in with a lot of these guys here. There are folks there. They were you could actually be smart, inquisitive, and athletic. Where sometimes it was like you got to choose one or the other.
Right.
And so I just felt natural. And so great. that was great.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So, give me another one of your yeah buts that you kind of work through.
One, I'm not qualified. I'll give you that. Even that recently. So, I moved to Nashville 18 years ago as part of another acquisition from Boston Scientific, which was great. But then with that, I wanted to stay here in this community and get involved, because we had moved quite a bit as a kids. And once I got to elementary school and middle school, it was like, we're going to stay here and plant our roots. And I wanted to get more involved about 5-6 years ago in particular once my kids left school. And so I went back to school at Vanderbilt, did an executive MBA program. And for some reason, it was a certificate series. And sometimes I thought, well, is that really an MBA or is that just kind of an MBA? You know, and I didn't want to take from others that had a full MBA that had done that. But then what I've ultimately found was the experience over the years, and it was really more of a sharpening of the saw of what I've learned over the years. So that was a yeah, but. So am I really qualified? I wasn't initially thinking I was. Like, yeah, actually I have been, and I just need to reframe it and think, what have I learned along the way?
So were those internal voices of your own yeah, but in saying that, or did anyone actually say to you, I don't think you're
there
qualified?
Was like, you know what, most of it was me.
Oh,
most of it. Now there were two people, but you know, they were in. One of them was in academics, and he just said, "No, that doesn't count."
But you got to consider the source sometimes.
Well, 100%. And then also sometimes people are just saying things. They're not saying things to you. They're just saying things.
People just say things?
Yeah, and so you don't have to take it so personally. And that's one of the things I've learned the hard way over the years. That's the one thing about getting older. There's that wisdom.
Yeah. So
and talking to other men or other people, but especially being in a men's group like what we're in, and you know, it's just great to be able to share some of these doubts and be authentic. It's like, oh, yeah, I've heard that too. It's like, wait, I'm not the only one?
You know, 8.2 billion people in the world. There's probably not anything that hasn't been said, or someone that treats opinion like fact.
Yeah.
Or we all have biases. So if I'm an academic and I'm going to be like, well, I've got a PhD and I know what this is like. It's interesting because a lot of yeah buts, there's people that have done things differently now. So there used to be apprenticeships, and you would learn and you would take the time, and even for sales, you would learn under somebody. And now people just watch a YouTube video and do it. And so people that did it the old school long way say, oh, that's not the way it's done. And we're watching people that are in their 30s surpass people because they take the information they need at that moment, apply it, and go and say, okay, well, the next thing I need to know, I'll watch a video or I'll learn in real time. And we're like, no, that's not the way you're supposed to do it. Well, if you don't adapt, you're really, there's not mentors as many as there used to be, and there's not apprenticeship. So what are you learning about yourself now that you've taken that education and things? What are you doing now that's different, that now that you know and you start to believe in yourself differently?
Well, one is working with the right mentees and teams that want to be coached or value your input. And if somebody doesn't, that's absolutely okay. You know, it's almost like take what you like and leave the rest is kind of something that I've really taken and latched onto. And I also suggest that with anybody I work with. So one of my favorite teams that I've worked with went through the Ideator program at Vanderbilt in Q2 of last year. And with that project, we just really enjoyed working together. And, you know, still we are together, and the team is just very diverse. And I just really respect how Annika, as the leader, is valuing everybody's input. She still makes the ultimate decisions. But it's a very diverse team of age, background, experience. And it's a small team, but it's very effective.
That's great. And you get, with that perspective, you probably even get some dialogue where you have to work through things because people don't see it all the same way.
Exactly. Well, and what I also like about it is I still have the mindset I'm learning as much, if not more, from the rest of this group, and it keeps me energized and motivated.
Yeah, that's great. So, you have a third yeah but? Do you have any others that are coming up that you? I mean, there's only 15 in there, so. I think about, you know, yeah, but you talked about not being qualified.
Yeah.
You talked about kind of where you come from.
You know, it's interesting with this book. I've used different chapters where different things. So some of them were just kind of sharpening the saw. So it was like in one of the chapters, just how to get for me, it was not being very organized.
Yeah, but what's the plan?
I'm not, or I'm not ready. Like I've got an idea, Bibb Ventures, for example.
Yeah.
You know, I've had it for 6-7 years, and it's really been kind of a catch-all because I didn't know exactly what I wanted it to be yet. And so I'm still, sharpening what that message is. Not quite there, but I'm a lot closer than what I was before. And so it was interesting, I just made a couple of notes about, and they're just basics. So I used it as, okay, just give me an outline of one or two things, as you said at the end of the book, what are the one or two things I'm going to do next? And I did that. Then there were other parts where it was like a journal. I mean, it was like...
I see you.
Yeah, there was... Let's see, which chapter was that one? It was... Oh, it's like, yeah, but where I come from.
Right.
And so there was a lot that I was able to use it for and go back in time where I may have thought about what I thought were the limitations of my background. I'm like, I got a little frustrated. Like I couldn't, like I mentioned earlier, I didn't have this class available. I couldn't do this because it just wasn't available in our community. However, in hindsight, I look at the benefits of it. And being able to talk to people, learn something from every single person I learn has really served me well. Because if you listen, you can learn something from everybody.
Well, people tell you a lot of different things all the time, but most people are so quick to respond and not listen. You don't understand how it applies to your own life.
Yeah.
So, Woody, as you're going through this book, what are some of the things that you think may have kind of flipped a switch, or you're looking at it going, you know what, this really made me think more than I had about something?
One of them in here is about you can't where you come from, even with the tennis perspective.
Yes.
Okay, Conyers, Georgia, a public school. You're playing on public courts. You didn't have any professional coaching.
Yeah, that's not normally...
No, that's not,
Not
football, wrestling, and basketball, maybe, baseball, but not tennis.
Right.
And, we were 0-10 my freshman year, and then we won region and top 4 in the state my senior year. And so it was just also, wasn't just me, but it was also we just built a team and a community of players over those years. And that was a blast, but it actually was really validating to beat the private school that had never lost in the district. It was like, yeah.
Well, and that's but where I'm from, not where I'm from, but overcoming adversity.
Well, and and so at that time, tennis was a means to an end.
Right.
And so for me, I put a lot of time into it. I was like, well, maybe I can use that and academics as a way to get a scholarship because I had to pay my way through school. And it did work out that way, fortunately. But it wasn't one that I was going to stick to that. It was a means to an end. What I noticed, though, after my freshman year at school, I was good when I tried really, really, really hard. But when I did kind of lose a little bit, I had an injury, and I just wasn't good enough for that level of D1. But it was a great experience and got me there. But I was not smart enough, athletic enough to be able to do all the things in school I wanted to. And so one of them had to give. And so we went from 12 scholarships to 4. So with that, okay, that kind of answered itself, but it did get me there. But what I also noticed was I lost my edge when there was not the passion. Agassi talked about that in the book.
Right, but his motivation was because of
somebody else.
Yes. So that's interesting, that doing it for yourself versus doing it for somebody else, or doing something you don't want to do for somebody else. How does that play out with some of the things that you've seen in business and in life when people are doing it for the wrong motivation? Yeah,
I know when I sold books door to door with Southwestern the next 3 years in college to finish paying my way through school. The first year, they give you a script, you do this, and I was just thinking, you know what? I'm just going to go talk about education. I'm going to show the books. I'm just going to be happy about it. And my whole mindset was like, if I can just talk for 20 to 30 minutes with a family about education, if they buy the books, great. If they don't, that's okay. But I really just had that enthusiasm, motivation to talk about it. You know what? And I was wildly successful just with that mindset. Come back the next year, and I'm like, I'm going to be even better, because the coaches said, if you memorize a script, you memorize all this, then you're going to be even better. I got worse. Because I became robotic, and I was trying to do it their way, and it wasn't authentic for me. And so I actually was worse the first 2 weeks than I was the first 2 weeks my first summer.
So sometimes listening to being inauthentic actually can detract you from what you're trying to get done. And you had a way to be able to do it and was successful. So sometimes other people's ways of doing things aren't the best way.
Yeah, and so what I looked at was and also I had one of the a student manager who also said, you need to go back to being you. Mm-hmm. You don't need to be so scripted. And so the next thing I did is I just put a big E on my steering wheel for enthusiasm. It's just to remind me, just be enthusiastic. Mm-hmm. And I hit President's Club every week the rest of the summer. It just that one change mentally and in my process made a big difference. And you see that in work too. I mean, I've had that professionally carry on. I'm getting stuck.
Own who you are in the way that you do it and then adjust accordingly. And that's what this book is supposed to be about, right? Don't follow Mark's way that he's from New Jersey, moved to the South, and it's about me. What it's about is, what are you seeing in others? How does this relate? What are you going to do, right? And I know when you got that book, you weren't planning on, this is really going to be a workbook and I'm going to do it, right? You just bought it.
No, I didn't actually. I just okay, I'm doing Mark a solid. No, I mean, I did like the idea when I saw the chapter titles. And for me, it was easier just to go chapter by chapter, not skip right to the right one.
Right.
Hey, whatever works for you.
Right.
But that's just what worked for me. And then what I just found, some chapters, like I said, it really became a journal.
Yeah.
And making me process and think, what was that evolution? What was that impact? It was extremely helpful.
That's fantastic. That's what the goal of the book was. Thank you for taking the time to be able to go through it. And again, the learnings that you have, you can pass forward because you're mentoring and helping others who have buts, I'm sure.
Yeah. It's interesting too, I started thinking about everybody's talking like ChatGPT, you got to be using this and you got to do that. And while I do like to try things quickly, I'm a relatively early adopter in that way. I found I don't need to be an expert at it, but it really has helped me get unstuck, at least to get started on something. It doesn't mean I don't copy and paste it because that just doesn't sound like me.
Right. But at least it does some research.
But it gets me unstuck and gets me started.
And that's what this is about. It's about getting people unstuck. So sometimes looking at things and hearing them and having perspective. So Woody, as we kind of wrap this up, is there anything else that you want to leave people with so they can kind of move past their own buts?
I think for me, what's been the biggest, reawakening is then taking my focus off me and really working with other people and developing, if you want, I wasn't really thinking of it as a legacy, but I guess in a sense it's just somebody really gave to me, I want to give back. And then what I'm finding in my community, it's just so great to see one or two comments or things that I've shared that somebody implements. I don't need to get credit for it, but it's just to see that, either that connection that I made with purpose.
Hi, I'm Mark A. Wolf, author of Yeah, But. Perspectives can shape your success or sabotage it. However, you're not alone in facing self-doubt. Even tennis legend Andre Agassi, once the world's top-rated player, admitted, "Yeah, but I don't feel successful." My book, Yeah, But, helps shift your perspective with 15 standalone chapters and a quick finder to navigate excuses like this. Ready to define success and have no more yeah buts? Click the show note link today and get your copy from Amazon or Apple Books. You've done a lot of business in the past, and you have this whole career that literally has led to what you're potentially doing and inventing, creating, evolving into now. Tell us a little bit about your past and some of the things you've been through. Let me just prep it with, I remember a company that was going to buy a company you happened to be at, right? You were in the home office of this company. Something to do with Guidant and Boston Scientific and Johnson & Johnson. And I think this story was referenced in Harvard Business Review in the book Negotiation Genius. And the reason it was referenced is because it was one of those deals that went sideways and there was a lot of other things going on. So tell me about your time there and how that's played into what you're doing today.
Absolutely. So fortunately, I had the good fortune of starting with Boston Scientific in medical devices in the career. Didn't know the difference between an artery and a vein. And so Boston said, what we're going to do is we're going to take salespeople and leaders and we're going to teach them the clinical side to really learn how to walk alongside with the clinicians and with the staff. great foundation. Even marketing people had to carry a bag in the field. That was fantastic. Then I go to Guidant, launching the Vascular AAA as a therapy. And the reason I go into this after a few years doing that, I went into the home office in San Francisco, got my working MBA, I call it, in product management, learning how to work with all the different disciplines there. During my time there, what was interesting was J&J was going to buy Guidant. And so with that, just knowing the different egos of the different CEOs, having worked with them at some point from afar, but still seeing that. And it was just interesting how the egos and the different needs for each one made decisions on again, off again. That's at a level I couldn't have any impact on. So what could I do? Was just focus on what I could control. So then when I was in the field managing, as a mid-level manager, managing a team of sales reps and clinicals, as people are like, oh, so what's going to happen next? We see this journal article, we see this something in the New York Times. There's a lot of uncertainty going on, but it was a positive uncertainty because it was, a good acquisition for growth for everybody. And it was interesting, 11 out of the 12 people on the team stayed. And also, and that was great because I couldn't backfill anybody. So we also had to, a couple people that were on performance plans, we had to really all work together because I couldn't backfill them.
Right.
And anyway, bottom line is everybody, we came together as a team. We knew that, the best interview is how you finish your job where you are.
Yes.
And with that mindset, everybody did extremely well, was all got jobs within the organization once the acquisition did take place. And I was proud of that we all kind of did that together. You can't always control it, but just grow where you're planted and do the best with that.
And that's a great lesson because a lot of people, especially with the New York Times article that talked about what was going on at Guidant and potential lawsuits and product problems and et cetera. And that's a great article and a great book to read just to find out about that with negotiation. But imagine listening to that and hearing the negativity and hearing what's going on and being concerned. A lot of times people will leave a team because they're just like, I'm out.
Yep.
But it was actually a positive for you. So how have you leveraged that attitude of stick-to-itiveness with what you're doing today at your current organization?
Yeah, and let me make one comment too. The one person that did leave, actually it was the best thing for him and his family because he lived in a small town and there was a great opportunity that opened up in that community, and I don't know if there would have been a territory for him. So for him, it was actually a great move. And just how we all handled that also reflected well with the team. Anyway, and so in terms of how does it help now going forward, I think during COVID was a great example of there's a lot of uncertainty.
How did you even get to thinking, gee, do I want to work at the EC to help people out? Like, give me a little journey on how you went to, okay, I'm not working for any of these large companies anymore. I'm starting my own thing 6 years ago. How did you get to wanting to decide to work with the EC and be part of a team and mentoring them?
Yeah, it was one of the projects that I worked on was as a result of a family member having an issue with mental health and drug-to-gene interaction issues. And with that, I worked with a molecular lab for a personalized medicine approach. Whole body health was the beginning of that. And that is a real passion of mine now. And so one of the teams that I met through Vanderbilt Incubator, through the I-Corps program last year, was actually using, developing a technology to be able to isolate the cortisol molecule, which is related to chronic stress, and to be able to measure that in real time. The concept behind that is to, because right now the only way to be able to do that is through blood work or saliva, but it has to go out to a lab. And while that's helpful information, it's at a point in time that's passed. So if you could develop that in real time and then put that together with subjective questionnaires, it gives clinicians, patients a little more understanding of where your cortisol is and does it match up with how you're feeling. And so the goal is to look for patterns over time to see like, what triggered that, whether your body knows it or not.
So you see a value in being able to do that, but how did you get involved with that project at all?
Oh, sorry. Yeah. So actually, with that, I saw the project, and Annika went through the Ideator program. I was a mentor with theirs, and just over time and going through the programming with them, which was great for me because it was like an 8-week program, and I got to listen to the content they were doing, and so it helped me then learn the same vocabulary that they were using in the course. And so my responsibility was to help with product market fit, also to do discovery with clinicians and hospitals, to just say, hey, here's the concept of an idea, and then just let them talk about it and then listen for pain points. And so with that, we just kept building on that relationship. We enjoyed working together, and then here we are, a little over a year later, and Annika and team have raised over $1 million. We've got it ready for, got a great regulatory person on board, and been able to effectively get it from the lab to validation testing and FDA IDE approval to start any day now.
So for people who don't know what that means, the IDE, what is that?
So basically, it's there's FDA clearance, and then there's FDA approved, and we see like molecular testing or these home kits. So those are FDA cleared.
You have business experience in sales, you have with medical devices and everything else, but you're currently using that in a way to not just help Woody, but help all these other people and other organizations. And so tell me something cool that you're involved with right now.
Yeah, one of my favorite projects is working with a company called Reminded, and the concept of it is to be able to detect cortisol in real time. So what does that mean? How to, manage chronic stress, and how can we make that better for patients and understanding themselves, also for physicians, and how to do better, more efficient treatment plans. So how I got involved with the team was Annika Lundstrom, who's the CEO, went through the Ideator program at Vanderbilt, and I was their mentor. And the first step in that Ideator program was to do discovery on the market. What are the pain points? And since she was from Finland, and I had relationships here in the U.S., was able to, be helpful in getting contacts and connect her to the right clinicians and the right stakeholders to understand that market.
That's fantastic. So you got involved, and so how's the process going?
It's fantastic. So after the 8-week program through Ideator, then you come to a stage where, okay, they earn that grant. Do we then go do an additional grant funding route, or is it ready to take to investors and start going that route? And there were several people like, no, keep going the federal grant route. It's non-diluted funding. She's like, no, I think we're ready to get the product from the lab into the market to test it. So she was able to raise $1 million in the last year to be able to hit that next milestone.
Wow, that's fantastic. And so those decision points, like, non-diluted, might take longer. You couldn't really forecast that things were going to be cut in grant funding and everything else that way.
No.
And so sometimes we make a decision, and it's better that we actually went a different way, because diluted funding that's actually funded helps you get a product. So where are you now in the process?
Yeah, so with that, and with the right investments from what she was able to raise, got a great regulatory person on the team, and got the product ready from the lab to test it out. So actually already got, and this is very rapid timing, and so in a year's timing was able to get the product ready, get through the FDA to be able to start our phase 1 trial any day, which is fantastic.
Yes.
So it's really just shortening the amount of time and being very efficient with the resources to get to this stage.
And that's coming out of here, right out of Nashville. I mean, that's
it's interesting. So the technology was actually, so she's from Finland. The chief science officer was at Oregon State and is now in New York. Our other medical advisor is in Mayo Clinic, and then the CTO is in Finland, and then I'm here.
Wow.
So, that's
Global
just 5
team.
people on the team. It's
Yeah.
a total global team,
Yeah.
and make it work. It's very efficient. It's a very diverse group in terms of age, background, experience, and it's fantastic.
So even though you're not at the finish line yet, what have you learned so far going through all this?
One of the main things is take a lot of information from different, whether it's VCs, angels, or clinicians, but still at the end of the day, you make the decision what works best for your team. And Annika has really pulled they pulled the right strings so far, and we've been able to move a lot quicker, even though other people said, you don't need to go that full amount of FDA clearance, just get it cleared. You don't need to go the approval route. But we're going to go the more challenging route, but we were able to get the first phase quickly.
Right.
Now, once we do this, then we'll see what phase 2 and just keep knocking down each milestone.
Wow. You got to be proud that you're part of something that you're watching happen, even though you've been through other big things. Isn't this cool?
It is really cool because I also, just because of what it can do for patients, and I've seen where it's impacted my family and others close to me in terms of addiction and mental health. And if you can provide real-time resources, can really impact the care, not only in the hospital, but then also carry it to home. And this is just phase 1 of it, because we'll be able to take the same concept with other hormones, but we got to prove this one first.
That's great. And just think, it's all because you took a risk of time to spend with someone else that was doing something. But it sounds like it's because it affected you and your family that you care enough to help other people. What a great lesson for us all to learn.
100%. And also for me, just I gained a bunch of weight during COVID and had some bad habits during that time and my own mental health challenges. And so I've really gotten into and appreciate the whole body health process, not just from the clinical side, but also the spiritual side and also the activity side. So, I'm really proud to say I'm in the best place mentally, physically, and spiritually than I've been in a long time with this whole body health. And also mentoring has a lot to do with that.
That's fantastic.
Giving me purpose.
Well, that's great. And I'm so glad you got to share the story and other people got to know about it, because I think there's a lot of things in our story where, like, why would anybody else care? It's like, well, just because you've been through something isn't just yours. You actually can share it to help others. You can help them with science and help them by mentoring or even just by sharing your story. And I'm really thrilled that you actually did that. And hopefully other people will be inspired to be able to take.
Well, I appreciate that, Mark. It means a lot. Even last night I had a conversation with somebody I've known a long time. They go, you seem to have a piece about you. Tell me more. Right. How did you get there? And so I've learned, I ask the same thing of other people. And so we're just helping build each other up in the community, and I love that.
That's fantastic. Woody, it's a pleasure speaking to you, and thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for listening to the Yeah But podcast. If today's episode provided valuable perspective on how to overcome the excuses that can hold you back, let us know in the comments. Remember, it's not about the yeah buts. It's about finding ways to live, learn, and lead better every day. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who could use a little kick to get past their yeah buts. And don't forget to follow us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. And for even more tips, connect with me at markawolf.com/podcast or on LinkedIn. Until next time, keep challenging those excuses and keep moving forward.